Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're one of my followers, please continue to support me and get this common sense commentary on issues that are taking place throughout our country and our world. And I got a good one for you today that's very, very interesting, that has to deal with the CrossFit creator who married a guy who's on trial for murder down in the Florida Keys. And her name, the CrossFit creator, her name is Lauren Jenai. I had to write a little bit of this down because there's a lot of legal nomenclature that's going on. So this is what happened. It's called the TreeHouse murder trial, and this CrossFit owner who started CrossFit with her ex-husband married a guy who is on trial for murder. The murder took place in 2017, and now the trial is making it to court TV and national media right now. So what happened was, in Key West, Florida, a Florida man is accused of taking part in a robbery that turned deadly, and he is representing himself at trial. So, Franklin Ty Tucker is charged with robbery, homicide, aggravated assault, and battery for a robbery that led to the death of Matthew Bonnet and injured Paula Belmont at a property known as the TreeHouse. So these guys, Franklin Ty Tucker is the guy that's married to Lauren Jenai, who is the co-founder of CrossFit. She heard about his story after she got divorced, and she is originally from Pennsylvania, but she found out about Franklin Ty Tucker getting charged with murder. He had a $2 million bail. She decides to contact him in jail, and then subsequently puts up his bail and marries him. And so what happened was, in court documents, investigators say that Franklin Ty Tucker went to the TreeHouse on November 17, 2017, and he brought a friend of his, a black guy. So Franklin Ty Tucker is a white male, and he brought Rory Detroit Wilson to rob Paula Belmonte. She had an apartment above the TreeHouse, but evidently they would go to the TreeHouse, and supposedly they would do, homeless people would be there, they would do drugs, and evidently Paula had some addiction issues, and they would have friends. It was like a party TreeHouse, and Franklin Ty Tucker knew all about it. So evidently he's been there before, and they wanted to rob Paula Belmonte because they thought she had a lot of money. Police say that the pair brought a knife with a plan of stealing her purse, but wound up fighting with others who happened to be at the property at the same time. As I told you, the TreeHouse was a gathering of folks, and they would do drugs and stuff there at the TreeHouse. And prosecutors say that Matthew Bonnet came up the stairs while the robbery of Paula Belmonte was in progress, and a struggle ensued, leaving Matthew Bonnet with a broken nose and 5 stab wounds that resulted in his death. So Matthew Bonnet was a friend of Paula, and they were going, and Ty and Rory Detroit Wilson were going to rob Paula, but Matthew got in the way of it, and they ended up having a scuffle and ended up killing Matthew and roughing up Paula a little bit. So Franklin Ty Tucker, the other peculiar part about this, so they get arrested for the murder of Matthew Bonnet. There was a third guy who was the getaway driver, and he left and got scared once the commotion took place. And there ended up being corroborating witnesses that said that they could identify Franklin Ty Tucker and Rory Detroit Wilson. So after the murder took place, the police came, there was an investigation, and then people started naming Franklin Ty Tucker and Rory Detroit Wilson. So and they get arrested. Franklin Ty Tucker, he had been represented by attorneys for much of the process leading up to the trial, but he filed a motion on September 20th, 2023, requesting to be allowed to proceed without attorneys. He asked to be either allowed to continue pro se or to allow him to hire an experienced attorney to assist him in self-representation in Monroe County, Florida. So this gentleman commits this murder, supposedly, with a second guy. They were going to rob a woman, and they ended up killing this Matthew Bonnet in the process and roughing up Paula Belmonte. He goes to jail. He had legal representation. He falls out with them, and now he decides he's going to represent himself. During the same time, this CrossFit co-founder, Miss Lauren Jenai, decides to marry him, if you can follow me. He commits a crime, supposedly, gets arrested. It makes national news. The CrossFit lady, she says she grew up with him as a child, so she remembered him, and she decides to bail him out and then subsequently marry him. And so she was providing legal representation for him. He decided he hated and didn't want any lawyers. He wanted to represent himself. Ty Tucker's accomplice during this whole saga, Rory Detroit Wilson, he ended up getting sentenced to life without parole on December 21st, 2022, after a jury convicted him of charges of robbery and homicide in this case against Matthew Bonnet. A witness said that Franklin Ty Tucker and Roy Detroit Wilson barged in the TreeHouse where Paula Belmonte and a friend were there smoking crack, and they started demanding money. And the murder took place. So leading up to now his trial has come up. That all happened in 2017. His trial is ongoing as we speak. And the caveat part of this whole bizarre story is Franklin Ty Tucker. He's 52 years old. Like I said, he caught the attention of his childhood friend and CrossFit co-founder, Miss Lauren Jenai. She bailed him out, and they got married in 2020. So 3 years after he committed the murder, this CrossFit co-founder, Lauren Jenai, decides to not only get him out of jail, but to marry him. And she hadn't seen him since they were child, so over 40 years. And in the robbery, in the process of the robbery, trying to rob Miss Paula Belmonte and subsequently killing Matthew Bonnet, they only got $250. That's all a life is worth in today's time, especially if there's addiction and other things that are going on in one's life. They got $250. This is such a bizarre story, and the opioid crisis, drug addiction, is a real thing in America. It's one of the top 5 crises we are having in America that need to be solved, along with homelessness, high crime rate, gun violence, joblessness, inept inner city public schools. We have a boiling point and a precipice of several negative, immoral things that are taking place in America, and it's causing people to do harmful, destructive, and death-worthy things to other individuals when they're not in their right state of mind. And back to the young lady that started this, you might say, well, what else do you know about this Lauren Jenai? Well, she was married to a guy named Greg Glassman, and they started CrossFit back in 1996 and opened up their first gym in Santa Cruz, California. And so there are so many different layers to this court case that I thought it was important for me to do a video about it, because this gentleman, Franklin Ty Tucker, is now up for murder. He fired his lawyers, and he's representing himself. If you watch Court TV, he sounds very articulate, If you look at his mugshot when he was arrested to what he looks like now, he looks like a very different person. It's almost two different separate people. He had not been in touch with the CrossFit co-founder since childhood. She finds out about his case. She goes to Florida, puts up his $2 million bond. Subsequent in 2017, subsequently in 2020, she marries him, and now they are estranged as of 2024, and he is on trial for murder. There are so many different layers to this thing, and they end up killing Matthew Bonnet over $250. Life is very tough and very stressful, and putting yourself in uncomfortable and deleterious situations can end up dreadful and end in death. And this is exactly what took place when people are not in their right minds and doing drugs and are desperate. We have to, in America, find ways to address mental illness, the opioid crisis, to find people the help that they need. When you see people in need, try to be there for them and point them in the right direction. It's unfortunate that this gentleman ended up dying over $250, which does not make an ounce of sense whatsoever. And then this multimillionaire co-founder of CrossFit ends up marrying this guy that's on trial for murder. Franklin Ty Tucker, and the CrossFit co-founder is Miss Lauren Jenai, and this is a complete unadulterated mess. And don't forget his buddy that was with him, Roy Detroit Wilson, the black guy. He ended up getting convicted of murder and charged with robbery and homicide. So he's going to be a corroborating witness against Franklin Ty Tucker while he's representing himself. I'm sure the state is going to have the best state prosecutors to prosecute this case. And Franklin Ty Tucker is in the belly of the beast, and it is going to be interesting to see how this manifests itself. So thank you for listening to this commentary. It's called the TreeHouse Murder Trial that took place in Key West, Florida, with Franklin Ty Tucker and Roy Detroit Wilson. They tried to rob Paula Belmonte, and her friend Matthew Bonnet got in the way of it and ended up getting stabbed 5 times and murdered. He goes to jail. The CrossFit co-founder, Lauren Jenai, decides to reach out to him, post his bond, and marry him. This almost sounds like a soap opera. Thank you for listening to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth.